Good afternoon. On behalf of Pataliputra Sahodaya, I take this opportunity to welcome everyone. Am I audible to you? You can mention in the chat box if I am audible. Thank you, Renu. Thank you, all of you, for telling me that I am audible. It's my great pleasure indeed. Close to 1,300 participants have joined, and we shall begin with the session. So our topic today is National Curriculum Framework for School Education. And this is your resource person for the afternoon, Ms. Khyati Dwarkadas. I happen to head the Department of Social Sciences at GOPI BIRLA Memorial School, Mumbai. I am an innovation ambassador and school training coordinator as well. I also happen to be a master trainer and resource person for CBSE. Now, before we deal with the National Curriculum Framework, it is necessary for us to know a base or the background of the National Curriculum Framework. And this entire curriculum framework has come from the National Education Policy. So the pre-draft of the NCF-SE, or the National Curriculum Framework for School Education that we are looking into today, placed for public comment on 6th April 2023. And Dr. K. Kasturirangan was the chairman of the National Steering Committee for the National Curriculum Framework. If you remember, he was also very instrumental in the drafting of the National Education Policy 2020. So the National Curriculum Framework SE was submitted to the Education Minister, Government of India on 29th July 2023. That means exactly 3 years after the NEP was implemented. However, it was released on 23rd August 2023. But the National Curriculum Framework for foundational stages came up in 2022. And it is also now incorporated in the National Curriculum Framework for School Education. Now, when we look at the NEP or the National Education Policy, we need to understand that there were many policies that came up before the National Curriculum Framework and the National Education Policy. So we have the Radhakrishnan Commission of 1948. We have the Mudaliar Commission. We have the Kothari Commission. Then we had one National Education Policy coming up in 1948. Sorry, that was the Radhakrishnan Commission. But in 1968, we had the first National Education Policy coming up, which spoke about basic education and was based on the Education Commission of 1964 to 68 or 66. And this National Education Policy was drafted and implemented by the Indira Gandhi government. So it was based on the Kothari Commission report. The second National Education Policy that we see came up in 1986, which was brought in by the Rajiv Gandhi government. And not much was done. Minor alterations were done to the previous policy. And only focus was now on adult education and empowerment of the minorities. In 1992, the P.V. Narasimha Rao government made further modifications in the same education policy, and they added a common entrance exam for professional and technical examinations. So finally, you had with these two national education policies, we also had a couple of curricular frameworks coming up in 1975, 1988, 2000, 2005. And the NCF 2005 is what we used till very late recently. And all our education depended on NCF 2005. NCF 2005 has also seen a lot of modifications. We've seen a lot of research papers being written over it, and right up to 2013 and 16, NCF 2005 has seen a lot of work happening over it. Finally, the Government of India released the National Education Policy of 2020. Now, when we talk of the NCF and the NEP, we need to understand the journey of education through the ages. So let us first look at the early Vedic age or the Gurukul system, where education was not about learning from books or textbooks or gaining knowledge orally. It was all about knowing oneself. It was all about salvation. It was about staying with the Guru, practicing in the Gurukul system. But the later Vedic age saw Varna-specific education, and people were then divided into the four major Varnas of Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. And then we had, in the Mauryan and Gupta period, we had education being set up, higher education institutes coming up, which were basically decentralized universities as well. And we know of some of the most important universities being there in the state of Bihar. So for all of you who are here in the Pataliputra Sahodaya, should be able to name a couple of universities that were set up in this time period. Let me see you write in the chat box the names of the universities. चैट बॉक्स में यूनिवर्सिटी के नाम टाइप करें जो उस जमाने में ओके नालंदा यूनिवर्सिटी everyone seems to only know Nalanda because it's on the slide. What about the other important ones which are in Patna right now? Takshila, Vikramshila. So I'm glad you're able to give me at least 3 of these important universities. Nalanda, Takshila, Vikramshila, Maulana something university, okay. Magad University. Good. So the late medieval period also happened to see Islamic philosophy. But in the British colonial period, we had a very English mode of communication. We had knowledge being imparted for the state of making babus, जिसे हम कहते हैं सरकारी बाबू बनाने के लिए हम एजुकेशन इम्पार्ट करते थे और सभी को अंग्रेजी बोलने लिखने का तरीका पढ़ने का तरीका हमने अच्छे से सिखा दिया था. The NEP envisions 5 important concepts and I expect you to have them noted down. So one is accessibility, equity, affordability, accountability, and quality. These are the most important 5 aspects envisioned in the National Education Policy of 2020. when they say education should be accessible and affordable to all, there should be accountability of an institution in case a small theft or something happens. And it should provide equity. So what is equity? आप chat box में लिख सकते हैं equity का मतलब. Just give me a moment. I need to pause here. Sorry for that interruption. Yes, thank you very much for the chat. I had seen, sorry for the interruption. There was somebody at the door and I had to answer that doorbell. But मैंने आपको break से पहले पूछा था equity का मतलब, and I had seen people write equal, impartial. Equity is not impartial. Equity is breaking the barriers. It is not equality also. जैसे एक मैदान में हम बोलते हैं बच्चों को खेलने के लिए, तो जो डिसेबल्ड होता है वो तो खेल नहीं पाता, देख भी नहीं पाता बच्चों को. तो जो एक बैरियर रखा है, अगर हम वो ब्रेक फ्री कर देते हैं तो वो इक्विटी होता है. इट्स अ लेवल प्लेइंग फील्ड. दैट मेक्स इट इक्विटी. So national education policy has also given us this concept of equity and not just equality. And it emphasizes on quality education. Absolutely, शालिनी जी शायद थे जिन्होंने equity का बड़ा अच्छा सुंदर मतलब निकाल के दिया. Yes. So, and it also emphasizes on quality education. Now, NEP also talks about the and emphasizing on fundamental duties, Indian ethos, constitutional values. ये जो हम नहीं करते सारी छोटी मोटी चीजें जो हर घर तिरंगा, reading out the constitution preamble, and we get certificates for all of it from the government of India. फ्लैग के साथ तिरंगे के साथ सेल्फी खींचो और सर्टिफिकेट मिलता है. So these are those things which are inculcating, instilling values into the Indian system, and fundamental rights, duties. इन सब की values बड़ी important हो जाती है. As well as sustainable developmental goals पर भी एक बड़ा आधार रखा है. So when we now move to the NCF, it is a curriculum framework that must support exactly a very diverse curricula. Just in our country, we have a lot of different people, and we all know that every child is different. So we have to provide harmony in the country through a curriculum which is open to all. Now, though there is a separate curriculum for NCF for the foundational stages, like I told you earlier, it has also been incorporated into this one. Now, the National Curriculum Framework talks about Panchakosha Vidya, which is the Indian tradition of fivefold development. Now look at this, Annamay Kosh and Pranamay Kosh, which is the bodily awareness and embodiment through active engagement of all the sensorial perceptions. It is a physical development of the child. Then there is the Manomay Kosh. Manomay Kosh is the emotional and the spiritual development of the child. It also talks about the socio-emotional and ethical development. Then is the Vigyanmay Kosh, or the scientific development and the cognitive development of the child. And finally, we have the Anandmay Kosh, which is best addressed at this young age in the lower age groups, where through art and culture. It talks about the aesthetic and cultural development of the child. So it was an outer to inner development for an all-round development, which makes learning intrinsic. So we spoke about physical development, which is Sharirik Vikas, development of life energy, Pranic Vikas, emotional and mental development, Manasik Vikas, intellectual development, Bauddhik Vikas, which talks about critical and divergent thinking, and spiritual development, which is your Chaitsik Vikas, which takes you through happiness, love, compassion, freedom, etc. And these are some of the pioneers in the Indian and global education system. And you can see that besides Mahatma Gandhi and Rabindranath Tagore, Savitribai Phule, Jyotibai Phule, Sri Aurobindo, Tarabai Modak, John Dewey, Maria Montessori, Howard Gardner, all of these, including Swami Vivekananda, have had a major role to play. The NCF also talks about Smriti. Now, in today's day, all of us talk about CBE. What is CBE? If you could mention in the chat box. CBE का full form क्या है? Yes, some email ID has written it is competency-based education. Perfect. Now, when we talk of competency-based education, Madhvi Jha also writes the same. So when we talk of competency-based education, we always assume that the lower order thought processes of cognitive fields will not be taken into consideration, and competencies begin from the higher order thinking skills only. But that is not the case. In the National Curriculum Framework for School Education, they say that Smriti, or memory, which is basic recall, is very important and very critical to the overall development of the human being. We often misunderstand Smriti or oral recall with rote learning. Rote learning is necessary to have a kind of memory. So imagine I am taking a session for you on the National Curriculum Framework today. So I'll read some of your names, I interact with you, and I remember you. That and tomorrow, if I come to Pataliputra and we meet physically, I recall your names. That becomes Smriti. It is not about rote learning or lower and higher order thinking. It is a basic condition to remember. For example, if we learned alphabets A, B, C, D when we were children, if we had not learned the alphabets, could we have made sentences and paragraphs? No. Therefore, Smriti is important. So current cognitive science research indicates that Smriti both working memory and long-term memory plays a very important role in cognition and comprehension. Insufficient emphasis on memory often results in inadequate outcomes in the classroom. Learning outcomes enable teachers to plan their content. So when you share the learning outcomes at the end of today's class, we will be able to do this. Or maybe at the end of today's class, Shefali will show me how to whistle. Then probably the entire class will pay more attention because they are more focused. So learning outcomes enable the teachers to plan their content, pedagogy, and assessment towards achieving specific competencies. So there are learning outcome framework documents available on the CBSE website for elementary stage, middle stage, and senior stage. Then we have Vidya Pravesh and Bal Vatika. So different states have different age groups here, but in my state of Maharashtra, Vidya Pravesh begins in or entering grade 1 begins at 3 months and 4 hours. That is the only study time they have in a day. Beyond that, they are not allowed to study. Bal Vatika has, prior to the age of child, every class will have done a prep class before entering the grade 1. Now, in the state of Maharashtra, entry into grade 1 is only at the age of 6. So it depends on state to state, but most states have now made this normal and common that pre-primary or the foundational stage entry is beyond. Okay, so Sanjay Das says Vidya Pravesh is a 12-week program in Pataliputra. Great. So 3 months makes it 12 weeks with 4 hours a day. Beautiful. Then we also in lower grades have importance of play. Importance of play. Okay, Shalini says Smriti is the root form of memory. Okay, thank you. It is spiritual. Fine. So when we talk about the importance of play, how children learn, it is the joy, wonder, that kind of pedagogy. All right. Madhvi says Nipun Bharat mission should be taken into account for FLN. Wonderful. And Okay, so there is Biswajit Saha from the Tarachand Dhanuka Academy. Thank you for joining us. But I would have appreciated your comment on what we are doing rather than an introduction. So when we talk of joy, choice, and wonder, it is also a toy-based pedagogy. So all the wooden toys, all the Indian indigenous toys, or shells, or woolen toys, paper toys, terracotta toys, lacquer work, filigree work. Those are the kind of toys that which are indigenous or native to India should be used for playing. तो पटना में कौन से टॉयज इंडिजिनस है बताइए पाटलिपुत्र के टॉयज कौन से हैं नेटिव टू पाटलिपुत्र पाटलिपुत्र में कौन से टॉयज नेटिव हैं जैसे महाराष्ट्र की बात करूं तो हमारे यहाँ सावंतवाड़ी के वुडन टॉयज होते हैं तो यहाँ माधवी झा लिख रही है क्ले टॉयज टेराकोटा क्ले वंडरफुल ब्यूटिफुल आई क्लैप फॉर यू यस puppets elephant dancing figures. Now, when the children play with toys which are found around them, they develop a connect with these toys and they want to know more about them. And whenever we introduce a new concept, we have to understand whether that concept is bringing in joy, choice, and wonder into their life. Now, to do all this, one has to make a plan and follow it through. So I want to draw my home and family. What will my home and family look like? Who should I have in the picture? What should I draw in it? We should take lessons from the trial and error method. We should use our problem solving skills. So I create a tower and all the time the tower keeps falling. So how am I going to create a tower that does not fall? Apply concepts of quantity, science, and movement to real life. So dig a tunnel in the sandpit. Could that be possible? Will the sand fall in it? अभी हम देख रहे थे उत्तराखंड की वो tunnel where the miners were stuck in और rat hole mining करके उनको निकाला. So if we dig a sand pit, can we dig it directly? Will the sand sustain? So traditional ways will not help the sand sustain. We need to wet the sand in making it sustain. We need to reason in a logical and analytical manner. We need to give the children picture puzzles. Communicate with friends, interact with them, negotiate different points of view, derive satisfaction from accomplishment. And at the same time, the child must be creative. Now, we have three kinds of play here: free play, guided play, and structured play. Structured play is normally teacher-led. And children actively participate in a teacher-led activity of playing. Guided play is child-led and teacher-supported. Whereas free play is what we expect them to do. It is child-led and child-directed. So this is our idealistic state. Now, what do children do in each of these plays? In a structured play, children only listen, follow rules, participate. Teacher ne kaha, हमने किया. Make a circle. Stand in one line. This is structured play. Teacher gives instructions, students follow. Guided play. Children plan and lead their own play. Like the one that they were doing in the child-led play or the free play. But here, they seek guidance from the teacher. These are our ideas. And can we do something to make it better? Teacher will facilitate this kind of a play. And free play, children decide all the aspects of the play. What to play, how long to play, with whom to play, everything is decided by the students. Now, NCF shows us the path to gradual release of responsibility. What are we seeing in the first one? I do it, you watch. The teacher explains the model and the strategy, students only watch. Second is guided. We do it together, collaborative. Guided also stands for you do it and I watch. I facilitate. And ultimately the free play, independent practice, you do it alone yourself. A student will now take responsibility for his or her learning. NCF also shows us how the aims, curricular goals, competencies, and learning outcomes are mapped. There are aims of education, which are mapped to curricular goals, competencies, and learning outcomes. And when we look at the curricular areas to competencies, you can see the physical development domain. A curricular goal, child develops habits that keep him healthy and safe. And you can see the curricular goals given to you in those areas. When you look at curricular goal 2, children develop sharpness and sensorial perceptions. And you can see a number of activities given there. And the third one, children develop fit and flexible body. And you can see how curricular goals are mapped there. Which are the competencies that we are now going to look at? So we have differentiate, the child is able to differentiate between shape, color, and other abilities as a competency. One of the competencies that we were looking at in the curricular goals was the child's ability to distinguish color, shape, and size within the ages of 3 to 8. And if the child is able to differentiate primary colors and other common colors, then we give them the best possible grade at the lower side. But if the child experiments and uses colors in art forms and drawings, decorating, display, paperwork, etc., then we consider that on the higher side. You see, the left side is the lower order of the Bloom's taxonomy, and to my right is the higher order of the Bloom's taxonomy. Now, NCF's approach to language education. National Curriculum Framework even today lays emphasis on language education. I want to stop sharing the screen while I talk to you. So NCF says that there will always be 3 languages. One will be the medium of instruction. One will be study in the home tongue or the state language. And third one will be a language of the student's choice. And I have a video here which I want to share with all of you. Once the video starts, I shall give it to you on the screen. Just a moment. I have got this video specially for you. I found a beautiful rhyme, thinking that people in the Pataliputra region will associate with it. But apparently, I don't see the screen being shared. 1 minute. Let's see if this works. Do you recognize this?
हम सुगवा हरियर रंग में लौकीला हम सुगवा हरियर रंग में लौकीला चोच हमर लाल रंग के मिठू मिठू करीला चोच हमर लाल रंग के मिठू मिठू करीला मिठू मिठू
Do you recognize this song?
हम सुगवा नील गगन में उड़ीला हम सुगवा
One of the languages
नील
native
गगन
to
में उड़ीला फल सब्जी खाइला मिठू मिठू करीला फल सब्जी खाइला मिठू मिठू करीला हम सुगवा कलाकारी हम करीला हम सुगवा कलाकारी हम करीले हम सबके नकल मिठू मिठू करीला करीले हम सबके नकल मिठू मिठू करीला मिठू मिठू हम सुगवा हरे रंग के लौकीला हम सुगवा हरे रंग के लौकीला ठुमक ठुमक के चलीला मिठू मिठू करीला ठुमक ठुमक के चलीला मिठू मिठू करीला मिठू
So I hope you like Hum Sugwa, Mittu Mittu Karila. This was all for you to understand that in the NCF they are also saying it, and in the NEP too they are saying that the home language or the mother tongue has to be taught in a joyful manner. It is not to be taught using multiple textbooks and forcing the child to learn. So the more joyful you get in teaching, like how many of you were writing in the chat कि आपको भी मजा आ रहा था उस बचपन के उस गाने को सुनकर, एक नर्सरी राइम सुनकर, तो बच्चों को भी उतना ही मजा आएगा. So moving back to our presentation. There are 4 stages of the learning trajectory. Assessment to celebrate every child's achievements. Hence, there need to be 4 stages. Description of the gradation of the children to be done is to support their learning and development. So at level 1, the child is called a beginner. And here the child tries to achieve the learning outcomes with the support of the teacher. within the given time frame. At level 2, the child is only progressing and achieves the learning outcomes with the teacher's support in the given time frame. At level 3, the child becomes proficient and starts achieving the learning outcomes on their own. This brings us to the level 4, where the child is advanced and achieves the learning outcomes and helps and supports others to achieve the learning outcome. And at this stage, the child needs more challenging tasks. Now, R1, R2, and R3. So, the basic concept here again is the concept of reading and writing, which is always a concept that we see in the development of any language. And R1 is normally the first language of the child, R2 is the second language, and R3 is the third language. And the child may choose to take on multiple languages as well. When we look at principles of pedagogy, the learning environment has to be safe and stimulating. Play is central to learning. Relationship between a student and teacher is very, very important. Physical development of the child is important, so there has to be enough place to play for the child. We are already aware that the child learns at his or her own pace, and the child is most comfortable in learning in the home language, like how you were learning in the home language, Ham Sugwa, Mittu Mittu Karila. Learning is deeply connected to the child's life and context. And learning to build on the child's previous understanding, classroom processes address all domains of a child's life. Now, just as we had Panchakosh earlier, NCF-SE also talks about Pachdi. Pachdi is the 5-step learning process. And it is actually a very good guide to formulate the sequence that a teacher may adopt in the planning of instruction or your lesson plan. So the 5 steps are Aditi or introduction, then Bodh or conceptual understanding. Then you have Abhyas, which is guided practice. Then you have Prayog, which is independent practice or application. And finally, you have Prasar or the expansion. So this is the Pachdi or the 5-step guide to instructional planning. When we talk about building positive relations with children, we need to get to know each child individually. We need to listen to the children and observe them, encourage the child's institutional responses, recognize and respond to emotions and moods, visit their homes regularly. Now, how will the students support the children? Teachers support the children through good teaching strategies. So we will listen to them, we will role model, we will help them solve problems, questioning, asking thought-provoking questions, research, and finally making the children independent, making them less dependent on others. Children love best through conversations, stories, toys, art, music, etc. So these are the methods which you can use. Like if you know you're happy, clap your hands. When you know you're happy, you can clap your hands twice. And if you know you're happy and you really want to show it, clap your hands. Then you can have all these image cards to show this is a horse, this is a pig, this is a rabbit, lion, tiger, anything. Involving students in indoor and outdoor games is a very important part of the NCF-SE. So you can even have these kind of indoor games like fire in the mountain, run, 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 and then people are running in the class. You can designate that couple of minutes in your classroom for the students to move. Movement is necessary. Also, taking children to the forest or the garden for a sun bath or a forest bath is important. And this is a Japanese method of Shinrin-yoku. We need to also at the same time understand as teachers concepts of a good teaching plan. So that requires understanding of curricular goals, competencies, and learning outcomes, assessments, etc. So the major components are competencies, learning outcomes, and intended objectives. Teacher-directed, teacher-guided, child-led activities. Duration and sequence of activities being mentioned. Content and material to be used in the activities to be mentioned. Classroom arrangements, seating displays, arrangement of material, etc. Specific strategies for children who need extra help and methods of assessment. All of this needs to be pre-planned by the teacher. Now for even literacy, NCF-SE uses the 4-block approach, which you can also see in the Nippon document. The 4 blocks are oral language development, word recognition, reading, and writing. So in oral language development, you can have picture conversations, role play, drama, storytelling, etc. In the word recognition, you have the phonological awareness, letter recognition, recognizing sounds and symbols. In reading, we have reading aloud, shared reading, guided reading, independent reading. And writing, we have model writing, shared writing, guided writing, and independent writing for practice. Now, in the Nippon Bharat document, we also have FLN, and where we talk about numeracy. FLN follows ELPS concept of numeracy learning. ELPS stands for experience, spoken language, picture, and written symbols. Experience, spoken language, pictures, and rote symbols. Now, many of us also face this block of mathematics. So the first block we always face is oral block. And we take a chalk and duster and start writing. Then we have skills in teaching. Mathematics teachers combine all strands of the proficiency by using skill teaching methods. And then there is a skill practice method where procedural, conceptual, problem solving and reasoning kind of questions are solved. And finally, you have the math game into place, which reinforces learning and is also a problem solving activity. Managing change, particularly change in behavior. Like if the child is aggressive and is constantly hurting others, then we need to nip it in the bud. Then antisocial behavior, a message strongly needs to be sent across to the parents and their children that antisocial behavior will not be accepted. Disruptive behavior. You're doing an activity in the class and somebody may want to go to the washroom, somebody may want water, all of that. So that is the disruptive behavior where the focus of the class is tried to be broken. Now, when you see the voice, words, body language, and attitude of the teacher, you know whether the teacher needs to be loud or is firm enough to be heard. Here we also talk about creating vibrant learning corners in the classroom. So we should encourage students to create their own classroom library by donating books in that library from home. They could be subject related books, they could be story books, or any books of the choice of the students. And then they should be given that freedom to go there, sit and read. You should also have a corner where the child can just sit quietly and meditate. Or the child may be very good in coloring and painting. So there should be a small corner in the classroom where the child is free to go and do each thing that he or she wishes to. You can see the images in the slide. It is the child's freedom on what he or she wishes to do in the classroom. You cannot tie the child to the four walls of the classroom. How can teachers support this? You organize your content through project-based, story-based, theme-based, and eclectic-based approaches. This brings us to the use of leveraging technology. Now, NEP has brought us this very important thing, Endure. I want everyone to note down the Endure website and read Endure and find out what Endure is all about. Then we have a Vidyadan on Diksha, where you can upload your own teaching learning materials. At the same time, CBSE also runs the PM E-Vidya channel, which has been dedicated work for students of schools. There is also technology for inclusive access for the Divyangjan. There's a Diksha teacher training platform and teacher technology for parental engagement. When you are organizing an indoor event, what would you be doing? Running a blackboard, circle, corner setup, classroom display, portfolio bags. Is everything in order? Outdoor equipment material. You're going to go and dig a sand pit. So what is the material that will be required? Sand pit, clay box, kitchen garden, outdoor equipment, a bucket maybe, a spade. So for those of you who are leaving me at the end of the session, don't leave me. You can wait for another couple of minutes. Very few slides are left, and then even I will be ending the session. So look at this now. We analyze student responses. We need to first understand what the responses are. Then we need to analyze the interpretation of the evidences found and act upon the interpretation. You can also create the self-assessment forms where the students can circle the appropriate answers. Now, the holistic progress card just last weekend on the 8th and 9th of December has been released by CBSE for grade 1, 2, and 3. So you can see it on the CBSE website. But it contains a 360-degree progress card. It reinforces comments. It has affective, psychomotor, and cognitive domains. It gives clarity and precision. It is accurate, appropriate, specific. non-judgmental, and provides room for constructive remarks. It should be non-judgmental, unbiased. It should be in the form of grades. Marks and credits should generally be avoided. Descriptive remarks. It should motivate further action. It should help and guide the parent and the student. It should be a good feedback of progress. And it should provide straightforward information of the child. So this is just one sample. Now that the CBSE has officially released the sample for grade 1, 2, and 3, they have given it on the website only. So, and they have also mentioned that this is a sample of a holistic progress card, not necessary that your school has the same. You may base or create your HPC based on the sample provided. Now, with the Panchkosh and the Panchadi, we also have the 6 Pramanas, which are the Pratyaksh and the Anubhav Praman, with Smriti, Anuman, Upman, Arthapatti, Anuplabdhi, and Shabda. So when you talk of Pratyaksh, it is usually through the senses, perception. It can be divided into direct perception, Anubhav, experience, and Smriti, remembered perception. Anuman, when you draw an inference. Upman, knowing through analogy and comparison. Arthapatti, knowing through circumstantial implications. Anuplabdhi, perception of non-existence. And Shabda, knowledge is a testimony in some cases. So these are the 6 Pramanas. We'll take a quick look at the curricular structure at the prep stage, middle stage, and secondary stage. If you notice, prep stage has languages, maths, PT, world around us. It's only in the middle stages that science, maths, social science, and humanities are added. And the secondary stage has essential courses, choice-based courses, and vocational art and sports integrated courses. At the secondary stage, you have broad curricular areas, particularly in science, social science for grade 9 and 10. And in the disciplines of history, physics, language, etc., you can choose. So you may choose one history, one math, one language with one social science. That makes it your choice. So these are the subject options that you can see on the right of my screen. Humanities, mathematics capturation, vocational, physical ed, art ed, social science, science, interdisciplinary area. NCF also says there will be a semester system with 2 board exams from next year. It may not be term 1 and term 2. Clarity is still required on that. Now, why is this done? Because the NCF is trying to not only provide students with wider choice, they're trying to students to understand the depth of what they are doing. They should study less, but understand that concept at depth. So like I told you, these are the courses available in the curricular areas with disciplines available. You have humanities, social science, science, maths and computing, arts, vocational science, vocational education, sports, and interdisciplinary areas. And you can take one paper in each of the areas. And because the number of subjects may suddenly increase, the time for school is shown as 9:30 to 2:30. And you can see circle time, snack break. Then there's a rhyme or a song and music. The concept of time is taught, art, craft, and free play, corner time, lunch break, after which the babies go home and the seniors continue with an emergent library and outdoor play in the wind. In the senior classes, you have the 3 languages in place, and school would continue till 2 o'clock. So with this, I make a humble submission of my presentation before all of you educated people. I would like to thank Sri Tarun Kumar Sir, Joint Secretary and Head, CBSE COE Patna, for connecting me with the Pataliputra Sahodaya. I'd like to thank Sri Rajiv Ranjan Sinha Sir for constantly falling back on my advice onto the betterment of the Pataliputra Sahodaya. And I'd like to personally go ahead and thank the technical team and Insha Rahman ma'am, who've been behind the scenes and have put up this beautiful session. As well as I'd like to thank the technical team once again, because they've really been a great help. And of course, all of you dear participants for joining in today. In the chat box, please do leave a feedback on where I can improve in my next session with you. And did you enjoy today's session? If yes, what did you enjoy? And how do you plan to take this session back to your school?